Uh, Sunday, it is December 6th, 2020, and this is the Disclosure Network, New York, Zoom meeting. And we've been doing these Zoom meetings ever since our venue, which is the center on West 13th Street in Greenwich Village, had to close because of the COVID-19. We hope that in next year, which is coming up real soon, that they'll soon be open and we can see each other face to face. And what the plans are right now is to not only have 2 meetings at the center like we always did for the last 20 years, but we're also going to do at least 1 Zoom meeting in addition to that, because we're getting people from California, we're getting people from Colorado, and other places that have seen us on the internet and have joined us. And they get all of our emails because they literally became a supportive member like I asked everybody to do. So I want them to continue to see us and to be able to interact with us. So that's going to happen. And I'm really excited about both being face-to-face, hopefully soon, and then also having our Zoom meeting. So it's a whole other chapter of our group. So I welcome everybody here. And why don't you just say your name, just quickly, we'll go right on the screen, just your first name, if you will, and where you're located. Go ahead. Jim, we're going to start with you.
Jim from Brooklyn.
Okay. Hal?
Hal, Staten Island.
Nick from New York City, Manhattan. Linda? Linda? Oh, you got to unmute, Linda.
Southern New Jersey, Robert.
Okay.
Hey, Robert.
Everybody else?
Anthony Flushing.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Julia, Chelsea.
Right. Hello, Chelsea. Doreen
from Chelsea.
Right.
Doreen from Jersey City, New Jersey.
All right. All right. And Mark, you live where?
We live on Mars right now, temporarily.
Oh.
No, just kidding. New York City. Marc,
Okay.
Brinkerhoff, Phyllis, joining us in Brinkerhoff.
Right. Okay. And Robert White?
He said.
Huh?
He said. Hold on.
Oh, you already said it. Okay.
Southern New Jersey, out in the creek.
Right. Right. Okay. And how about the people only on the phone? Michael, you got to unmute.
Yeah, over here in Pennsylvania, Stroudsburg, Delaware Water Gap area.
Yeah. Very nice area indeed. And who else hasn't done it?
Nick, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Nick? Yeah, Linda here. I'm Linda from Brooklyn.
Oh, Linda from Brooklyn. Yes. It sounds like a movie.
I live with Jim.
Wow. Does Jim's wife know?
No, she doesn't. My husband doesn't know either.
I guess we better go on then and keep away from that subject. Thank you. All right, guys. Much love to each one of you. I'm so glad that you're with us today. And we have an amazing 2 speakers that are going to talk. Marc and of course with Phyllis too. And they are an amazing couple. And Marc and Phyllis have a truly interesting life. And they've got, I'll tell you, when you interview Marc, we never, ever have enough time because of the multi-layered subjects that he can address. So Marc, I want you to be close to the microphone so we can hear you really, really well. If you want to turn up your volume and then get closer to the screen. If you get closer to the screen or bring the screen closer to you.
Oh.
Yeah, can you get any closer?
Can we get the microphone? Phyllis is working on right now.
We can hear you fine, man.
Now we can hear you. Okay.
Your audio is fine.
Okay. So Marc, what would you like to talk about today?
Well, we were talking about this last night, about this being like the Christmas season and getting into some of the reasons for what it's all about, actually. And
can everybody hear this?
And Yehoshua.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay. Oh, go ahead then, Marc. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You guys can hear me. I know I talk a little low sometimes when I'm
your audio is good.
Okay, Jim, thank you.
but keep up the volume, Mark, if you will.
Okay. So we were thinking about this. So we were thinking, Phyllis and I were discussing it. And we came down to a lot of people don't really understand why Yehoshua came here, why Sananda, who he is. And I guess that's part of the story, right? Because people don't know the true story of what's going on and what the Star of Bethlehem really was. Things like that. They all try to say it was made some kind of a conjunction of planets or some satellite or like a comet came through or something. But in truth, it was actually a ship, a giant ship, actually. And on the high realms, it's known as a star.
But before you go there, I think just a little bit of a.
Oh, Phyllis,
Just a
yeah,
little
we got to give that
foundation.
intro that
Little foundation.
Ingo likes. And Nick, you were saying do a little intro.
Yeah.
Okay,
Foundation.
we got a little foundation. I seem to run off and go somewhere else. So basically, I'm here actually from another dimensional space, a high frequency space. And I've known this ever since I can remember, because I remember before I was born and coming in. So I'm here to express what we were explaining ourselves as the multidimensionality. What's here on this dimensional space? Who we are. We're not from just this planet system. We're from other systems and other galaxies. So I'm here to express that reality and to bring that to people to understand what the multidimensionality means, what it's about, and how there are many multiple dimensions within our dimensions. And that there are many frequencies or dimensional space levels that we call planes. And people think frequency or dimension is similar to a plane, but it's like levels within levels. And then you got frequencies within those, which are different vibrations as they go. So I didn't have to incarnate here. I came in to actually rescue Phyllis, my soulmate, her aspect. And she's been incarnating for a while, like most people on Earth are aspects when they're higher over soul. So you keep incarnating onto these dimensional spaces because you either have to because of murdering people or doing something like that. Something horrible can happen, but people keep coming back. And a lot of times it's family and friends that cause them to keep returning. They come back to see their grandchildren or great grandchildren or family. So a lot of souls come in through the similar families, like they have family groups that they work with as soul families, they call them.
It's also the lack of education, because they may not realize.
She's talking.
Yeah, I like to speak from
The hand talks like
they
Soupy Sales.
They may not realize that they have the option to ascend.
Yeah, that's the other thing. They don't know. The souls don't realize their aspects. I mean, we have an oversoul that's a high aspect. It's the highest there is. That's the part that was created by Infinite Creator. That what we became souls is what we are as oversouls now in these dimensional spaces. We'll call ourselves an oversoul on a high frequency. And us here are like aspects projected from the oversoul. And it's hard to explain it because the oversoul is multiple aspects. So the best way they showed me, the crew and my friends on the other side, when I was about 19 or 20, they said, see yourself as a giant salt shaker. That's the oversoul. Inside the salt shaker is all the salt. One little grain is you right now on Earth. All the rest are in other aspect places. Could be anywhere. Other dimensions, other galaxies, other universes.
But to get back to the
And
foundational.
so we'll go back to foundation, like those said.
He
So I didn't have to incarnate here, but I came to help in that way to get Phyllis to rescue my soulmate from incarnating again, because the solar system and the sun and this planet system and this galaxy are going through changes that will be occurring soon in the next, I'll say 10 to 15 years or 20 years. I'm what is known as a walk-in. And I didn't have that word that was given to me back by Ruth Montgomery. I didn't have a name for it. I just said I came in, I dropped in, but I didn't have a name for it. So a walk-in is the one who takes over a body that's been discarded or has died. And so I was, the body I took over was going to be a stillborn birth. And that soul left. I met the soul and I transferred in. And when that happened, I waited for the Infinite Creator to send the spark of life, which is the breath of life, which starts your heart beating. We don't control that. That's something that's set up. And so I waited for that. The heart starts beating. I was also connected, so that starts the connection. And from there, I was able to leave the body and go out of body and just visit back and forth as a month before my mother gave birth to me. So I came in the 8th month and took over the body. Before entering the body, I knew I was not to be given a memory veil, because we worked on that on the councils before I came here, before I even got the body. The councils acknowledged that we will not have to have a memory block, because I was bringing in information that was to help in some way. But as a child growing up, I just knew I had information, but I couldn't explain, I could say where I came from, but it made no sense to adults until I told them about the galaxy and the solar system. So before entering the body, I knew it was not to be memory veiled. And when I was going to get into the body, the little body inside my mother, there was an angel standing there who is the memory veil blocker. She blocks that. And she knew right away. She said, nope, not doing it. She put her hands down. So I talked with her and I said, I'm not supposed to be forgetting anything. By the ministering angel, that she was called a ministering angel, and those are the ones who block or oversee souls coming into bodies. The memory veil that people hear about, it blocks a soul's past recall of who they were on the earth or in another place, that on a planet in time. So it blocks that memory, but it also keeps whatever the soul determined beforehand coming in, what little gifts they might bring in. So some people bring music and have no knowledge of music, but they suddenly know how to play pianos and guitars and violins as a 5-year-old or something. That's the gift that they brought in to come in. Mine was art. I always had art with me. Nick, you might be art and music and theater. Like this kind of thing happens. And actors. So people say, well, I've always wanted to be an actor, but that meant you've been on public speaking realms or different places many times in past places. So you can easily deal with people or easily deal in public and how to speak to counselors and things. And music is a talent that comes into and writing as well. That's the memory is blocked from the soul for that reason, so that they don't get interrupted by their past recollections that can sometimes pop in. So when people go to Italy for the first time, they know the streets and they know everything about where it is. They can't figure out why. It's because they lived there many times in the past histories. So that's how they remembered that. And that also triggers that soul to say, why would I know this? What's going on here? So then they start researching to go deeper. And then they find out, wow, about reincarnation. Maybe they weren't aware of it. And that's how they wanted that soul wanted to be awakened to that information as they progress in that life, let's say, or this life. So that's what it does. It blocks them from memories of galaxies as well, other places they've been. But that's why the souls that are out there that say, I've always felt I'm not from here. I've always looked to the stars and felt my home was there. And that's where that comes from. That means you were recently coming from another galaxy or another solar system, another planet system, or even a system inside a planet in our system now that you had a past time with. So that feels familiar. And that's the best way I can explain that. So when I took over the body that the soul vacated, I had to wait for the creator to start the heartbeat. That's important. People don't understand. The creator is the one who starts our hearts. And when they say your time is up, that's where humans and souls come in to help fix that. We got doctors. Creator works with doctors and angels work with the doctors. So if someone has a heart attack somewhere and they're on the sidewalk and the paramedics come and jump their heart and they come back and they might have a story to tell because they might have had a near-death experience. This is all set up that way. And we come into these times now to bring this information because 1,000 years ago, they didn't know about pumping the heart and starting it again. So that soul would be standing there waiting and looking at their body and they can't get in and can't activate it. And I know what that's about too, because I had drowned. So it's hard to activate your body until you're really connected. So that explains sometimes souls wandering the earth, walking around because they have no belief systems and don't know how to get out, how to
That's a
go
whole
home.
other lecture.
That's another place to go. So basically, another thing Nick has asked me about is I can remote view. I didn't have that word as a kid. Knowing that word, I called it mind travel. But remote viewing is something you could do. Some people train for it, and some might be natural. But you can see other places and put yourself there. And with Ingo Swann, who is our dear friend, he could take coordinates and focus on a coordinate, not knowing where it is on planet Earth, and get there telepathically or mind travel there. Meanwhile, he knows you're sitting, you're sitting in a chair, yet you're mind traveling to that point and seeing from that perspective. And that's what humans are, the power of the soul and the power we have within us. And that Ingo was trying to express to people in his books about the power. It's like the inner power that souls have, and how modern today, let's say today or whatever, are trying to block the power of the souls from having that access, like through the pineal gland, pituitary gland, etc. So they try to poison us with different things, like what's the other stuff? Fluoride, all these things that calcify the pineal gland or pineal gland. So we have to stay away and purify our bodies and cleanse and detox to help break that down. And the calcification, when it starts breaking down, you'll hear crackling popcorn sounds inside your head. You might even hear clicking sounds or noises like that, or like cracks, actual crack sounds in the center of your head. And that's a sign that that pineal gland or that calcification is breaking down. And when that happens, you'll notice that you have access even quicker to the other side with light. So if you start focusing dimensional telepathically, start focusing on light coming in to your the crown chakra, that will start to break that calcification down, actually, very gently. You just do it lightly and gently, it cracks down. Ingo Swann, who was Phyllis and my best friend, he was also one of our, in the past, he was a father of ours in another galaxy. And we all knew that. And he shared different things with us. And when at one time, I you don't get jealous, but I did. I got a little jealous because he was telling us about these stories about his friend who would come to visit him, and it'd be this friend, and they would
be teaching
them how to remote view and do these different experiments. And he was a guy helping him with his website. And so I said to Ingo one time, I said, Ingo, why don't you ask me? I'd love to join in the game, come over and we can all be together and do this and have fun. And he says, oh, Mark, you don't have to do that. You do that automatically already. You've always been doing it. He says, I don't have to teach you anything. And I was like, oh, but I thought it was going to be fun. Something to do. But Ingo, when I first met him in 3, we met him a long time ago at a party. And I've told this story quickly before, but guys, it's funny. I brought my book, which I had my photos in and actual artwork and things like that. So I bring this notebook with me. I went to a party that was set up for us to meet. And Phyllis and I were getting tea. Ingo was sitting on a chair, and we pulled up chairs. I gave him the notebook, and I said, I'll come right back. I'll go through with you. I'm getting our teas. He wanted the tea. So I went to the kitchen to get the tea. And I'm coming back, and he's closing the book on his lap. And I went, what? I thought we were going to look through it together. How can you have looked through it that quick? But he did. And he says, I've already looked through it. And he had a knack of calling me and Phyllis sweethearts. That was his nickname for us. So he goes, I've already gone through it now. And I said, but I was going to look through it with you and just tell you what picture meant what and when that happened. And he says, oh, it's okay. So I sat down like almost knee to knee with him with the notebook between our laps. And he was going to open the pages again, but he had it closed. He was drinking some tea. And he looks at me and he goes, so, was it difficult to get all that energy where you come from, that higher place, that dimensional space far away, with all that energy you guys have? Because you're big beings. He said, you compressed it all into that little tiny baby inside your mother. And I was like, what? I said, Ingo, how do you know that? He says, I see it. And I went, but no one's seen that. Nobody knows that. He says, well, you compressed it in and the other one left, right? You compressed in. Did you ever get claustrophobic? I said, that's the reason I got claustrophobic. Whenever I felt very tight, that's the image that comes in, going in to compress myself in. And he just laughs. And he was so funny when he laughs. He goes, like, I knew it, that kind of vibe. And so he says, so you're your own higher self aspect here, aren't you? Your own higher self inside there. And I said, how do you know that? I said, that's true, but how do you know that? Because no one knows that, only Phyllis. And he says, oh, sweetheart, I could see you right there. And I said, see me or see me as Mark? He says, oh, and he opens my book and he points to the oversoul picture I drew. He says, that's you right there. That's who's looking back at me. And it was like, no one's ever seen it. He's that super psychic guy. I said, Ingo, you're the first person that's ever said that, who's ever seen it or even knows where I came from the past and how that got me. He says, and he laughs. He says, I see a lot of things. And from that moment, we talked and he said, I said, Ingo, I want to talk to you about the moon because I've been there since before here coming to this planet, but I've been there when I was 5 years old too, out of body. And even though you're 5 years old in physical earth body, when I'm out there on my aspect, my other self, my oversoul, not oversoul, my higher self aspect, which resembles my oversoul. And he said, oh, so I described to him what I saw and the dark side of the moon, as they call it, even though it's not always dark. And he says, no one's ever seen that. And I said, well, I've been over there and you've seen what's there. It's a base over there. The base inside the moon is basically a spaceship inside, it can be moved anywhere. But it was brought here to balance out the solar system after that giant planet blew up. And we know that planet between Jupiter and Mars. They called it Marduk or Maldek. He says,
But it's now the asteroid.
that's the asteroid belt. So a lot of the souls from that went to Mars and to Earth to incarnate in. And they caused the same trouble they're doing now, as you know, for war. That's their thing. They like to create problems right now. Atlantis was the reason that these beings came in, and they've messed this planet up after that too. That's the scientists that came in during those times. I met Phyllis here in Atlantis too, and I came back in here to help. So we were traveling back and forth. And a lot of people I meet today are from those times that I visited here, and they recognize some of the space things. Yeah, we came in as Ethereans. Thanks, Phyllis. I always say that. I forget. People say when you're visiting the Earth, you think that you're all just coming in as a dense physical beings. The Etherians or high Etherians, they come in from another frequency, and they can materialize in and walk the planet, meet with people, talk with you, have a cup of tea. It doesn't, even though they don't need to always eat on those other sides, they can do all that to share and join in the experience, like the Hopi Indian legends and everything. So we have a lot of that happening. That's where I was coming to visit the planet a lot as an Etherian when I was visiting the solar system before. So people I've met are from those different times, Hopi, different Native Americans, and ancient Atlantean times. Then a lot of people don't know that there was an Atlan, a base on this planet 250 million years ago, and that was space beings. And those are the remnants you see around the planet Earth of the giant stones that look like 30-foot people could walk up them, or they're under the ocean, or there's different temple-looking places, or they think they're temples, but they may have been the ground bases of foundations, because these beings would use only the natural products around the planets to build stuff with, knowing that they would break away or decompose in time. And so that's that would happen in the ancient times. So there's an ancient place called that was here as Atlan, and from that next point came Atlantis, that came later, roughly to 50,000 years ago or so. So the people on the planet at that time were human-like people. We look like humans today, and a lot of the beings visiting were space beings working with them. So you see, a lot of technology was here before. Even more technology than is here today was even in ancient times. That is long gone now, because that technology came from the space beings. And that's why people can't explain that battery or whatever in the geode 2 million years ago, 2 million year old geode that's been found, 50 years ago or so. So these technologies, these things have been flipping. This planet's been flipped about 4 times. So every time comes a new wipeout, and a civilization starts up again, like caveman times. And this is what's going to be close to coming now. And I know it's hard to believe it. And I just don't want to tell people, but in the last 15 years, we've been talking about it, and 20 years, we knew about it, but we couldn't talk about it. And even my father asked me when I was a little kid, I was about 7 years old. He said, "Why are you here?" He asked me when I was 4. And I told him, I'm here to help in some way, sort of talk about things like a teacher, but not a teacher, and to show stuff with my artwork, but I don't understand how. That was when I was 4 years old. I was telling him about the solar system. And he could not explain that. He said, "I didn't tell you anything about solar systems." But the thing was, I told him, there's not a lot of time. And when I drowned when I was 7 years old, I left the body and went up, high up with my angel, guardian angel. And I was seeing the light that we have to go through, that big light that calls you with love. It's a spiraling, beautiful, giant 30-foot diameter doorway in the sky. It looks like diamonds shimmering, sparkling. And it's calling you with such love and pure love from Creator. You're drawn to it like a little moth. You want to go to it because his love is so pure. It's your Creator. And I halted. I stopped my angel. I said, wait, hold on. I know if I go through that, I can't come back. And it'll take too much time. I'll never be able to come back again. It'll be too late.
You'll be able to find another
I
body.
won't be able to find another body to come back in, but it'll be too late. That was my signal clue. I'm 7 years old, and I knew intuitively that this was my only chance. There would be no other chance because it took me a long time to get to this body, to be able to connect to this one. It took years, many years. I tested in 1920s. We tested to see what it's like to come in to do these things. And it was not to take over a body, but it was to test to see how it's done. They give you clues on how to do this. So it's not easy, but you have to find a body that discards at the right area of time that you're hoping to get in. And we were in, Phyllis came from Connecticut. I came from upstate New York. So it's kind of close by. I couldn't be from California or Canada. I had to be in a close proximity to somehow have a chance to meet up. And I picked my father because he was somebody I knew from space. And my father had an intuition, and he's a naturopath, mathematician who was natural at it as a child. He could calculate at 5 years old. So I knew this guy was genius with math. I don't have that. On the other side, we have it. But I have the art. So I realized at that time, like 1961 or 2 or something, that if I go through that light, I'm not coming back, and there's no way to get another body in time. There's no way it's going to happen. So I said to the angel, if I go, I can't come back. She says, well, your body is not 100% dead. It's drowned, but it's not dead. So she said, you want to try? And I said, yeah, let's go. So I zoomed back down. And at that moment, I was brought up out of the water. And I snapped in. So I don't want to go into that whole story, but it became, I snapped in not easily, and I could not control the body. I was only in the head, seeing out of the eyes, but no control. And I was still drowned until the water came out of me and everything. So that all happens later. And that's why I know what I know, that the time is coming, and I've been putting this off for many years. Phyllis knows we can't talk about certain things, and the crew and Yehoshua have given me the okay to now start talking about it, because when I met Christ materialized on Christmas Eve in my apartment here.
But you've been talking to him all your life.
I've been talking to him all my life, yeah. I've been connected to him since before I came, but I only knew him as Sananda. I had a name, but it wasn't Jesus. And when people told me Jesus, I said, well, that sounds like the being I know who is the creator. And it's him. So when I saw him, I said, as a little kid, I saw his picture, a painting someone did, my grandmother was showing me.
When you were out in a lucid body.
What?
You were in a lucid dream.
Well, I meet him in lucid out of body since I was a little kid, but 4 years old and all that. But it wasn't until my grandmother showed me a painting, a little photograph of him, that I recognized him. And I still didn't know. I wasn't in catechism or any of that at 4 years old and 5 years old. But she shows me this picture. I said, oh, I know him by a different name. And he's around the earth. He appears as this image. That's how he appears around earth. But I know him in a different look, as Sananda, a different look, which is an androgynous being of gold. He's golden all over. So this is how I understood who Christ was. And as I grew and understood who he was, he's always talking to me. And I was always asking questions to him on the other side. As a little kid, he would sit me on his lap and we'd talk. So I got to ask about a lot of questions. And any question my friends have put to me, he's given me answers. And I'm talking questions from the 1960s. I had a lot of gay friends in the late 60s, early 70s, and they were very upset by the way the Bible handles things, and I'd read the Bible in 1970, and I read it the way Christ told me to read it, in 3 ways. And I'll tell people how to do that. But what happens is an intuition opens up, like your intuition opens up, and you see and you hear. The Holy Spirit will give you directions on what that meaning in that passage meant, or the Old Testament, what that really was. A lot of times it wasn't the creator we know, that's all love. It was something else coming through that we all know as Baal. which is a creature that's not of the good, that wants sacrifice and blood sacrifice. So I know I'm going too deep into this, but that's the kind of information. The Bible will give you that information if you ask for that, and you read it in 3 ways. It's called mind, body, spirit, Jesus said, Yehoshua. He said, you read it once, read it. You can read, as you're reading it, you could do it this 3 ways. You don't have to read the Bible 3 ways, 3 times. You just read it in 3 ways as you read through it. You read it once out loud. That means body. Once just reading it to yourself out loud. I mean, reading it like, and the Holy Spirit said, then you read it whispered to yourself, whispered, and whispered, that's spirit. And so you would mind, body, spirit. That's body is spirit, is speaking out loud. Mind is reading it to yourself, and spirit is whispering to yourself when you read it. So you're going to read it in a whispered sound, like, and then the day came that the Christ did this. And then you read it to yourself, and then you read it out loud. So it's either way you want to do it. I usually did it reading out loud, then reading it in a whisper, and then reading it to myself. That's how I did it. Mine, it doesn't matter how you do it, but it was easy. And with that, you go silent after you read a few passages, and a whole flow of information will come in. The only thing I have that's different, I think, from the people reading the Bible, is I've come through the histories from where I came from, so I remember certain things as occurred in the histories, and including passages that came from the ancient Bible times. And I was about 7 or so when I was watching a TV show came on with Moses, or one of these shows that had Moses back in the 60s. And my mother was standing there and she's looking at the TV. We had a color TV, and I started to say, oh yeah, I was in that beam. We were that beam. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, the pillars by day and night. And she's going, what? I said, the lights. We were the lights. She goes, who were the lights? I said, my friends, us and our friends. So we had 2 ships disguised as clouds with an etheric ionization field around them. And we had the beams coming down that looked like lighting or light. So I said to my mother, the ship, if you're looking up, I was the one on the left. So we were looking down, I was looking down, and I could see the children of Israel following. Very high up we were. And the reason I was there was because Phyllis, her aspect, was incarnated at that time following Moses. So we were there as part of that. But a lot of times your aspects, you're drawn to each other. So sometimes that ship that's looking down might have beings in it. And one of those beings might be your higher self, or a future self of yourself, like another aspect from another galaxy or solar system. And they're curious to see you. You're their future past aspect. That's why when they say, do some of these UFOs come from the past or are they from the future? And you can say kind of both, all of that, because your aspect can be from the future of you, which is like another galaxy. Like we pass away here, and we go in that aspect over there into that galaxy and come back to visit us now, back in 2000 years like that, or year 1998. And it happened to me because we did that. I did that in one of our encounters in 1967 with my parents in our house up in Mayapack, New York. So we were over the house, and I'm looking at this ship with my father, giant ship, and window opens up and there's silhouettes standing there, and one of them waves. I said to my father, see that? That's my friend, meaning it's me, but it was my friend. I called my friend at that time. I was 14. But in 1978 or 76, I was taken out. I went out of body, and they surprised me with a game they were going to play with me. They took me in a ship, and it was not me. It was my oversoul, my aspect, my higher self aspect, me. So I'm like, oh, I'm working with the crew, and all of a sudden they're blocking me with a trick, like a game they're going to do. And that's how they can play games with us and have surprises with each other. You can have a surprise party. Your friends will give you a surprise party. We're all telepathic. We know what's going on, but we have ways to block a little bit where we don't tune into what's going really on, so they can have a talk back and forth with each other. And you're being blocked because you're going to be tricked and surprised. It's not a trick. It just means like a party. They're going to do something. So they did that for me. And they said, we have something waiting for you. And I said, oh, this is great. So what's going on? So we're in a ship, and all of a sudden they time traveled us back to 1967. And you're not seeing how they did it in the windows. They had they have a different way with the screenings and things they do. And you could see it, thing was going on. I could see it, but I was being distracted to look over here. So they wouldn't show me the time aspect going on, which I didn't see until later. And then they opened the windows, which is dematerializing. And now I look down, and it's my house, upstate New York. And I see me on the stoop with my father. And I see my brother and my mother in the yard looking up at the ship. And I went, oh my gosh. In my head, I'm telepathically saying, you guys, that's fun. This is great. I'm now seeing from the other aspect perspective, your past, future self, which isn't your past. It's your now self, actually. So I'm looking down and I'm saying, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. And all of a sudden, there I am doing this to myself, waving at myself. So I became not just me waving at myself in 1967, but 1976, 77, I'm waving at myself in the past aspect. So I'm seeing from two perspectives. And that's what we do and what they can do for us. And it's in your oversouls and higher selves and all that. Most people are their aspect here. And when they leave their body and go out of body at night to a higher frequency, they might connect to their higher self aspect on another frequency and see through their aspect's eyes because it's really them. And they'll have knowledge they didn't understand ever on planet Earth. They didn't have this knowledge of space. And some of it, when they go back and return to their body, like Einstein, was able to recall some things he remembered and saw. Because I was 10 years old and I saw the level when I was out there on the frequency. I was Earth 10 years old, out there on those frequencies. And there was the mathematical realm, the realm that fascinated me. My father knew it, but I didn't. But I know it when I'm out of body on the other side in the higher realms. So I'm seeing it now as a 10-year-old perspective going, whoa, here it all is. This is the mathematical formulas going by. You see formulas going by. It's almost matrixy like, things going by with your formulas. And as they go by, you hear them as if creator speaking them forth. And it goes through your being and you have the whole answer to the formula. And all the formulas I saw, we recognize from space. I recognize them. I was like, yeah, that's that one. Yeah, that's that. But in Earth, they take it from you. You can't remember it all. So the E equals MC square formula came floating by. It was like this long. Has a bunch of formulas with it. E equals MC square minus times this, dimensional, that divided by. And when I saw it go by, I knew what it meant. And I heard it. And I recalled it. And I saw it as a visual screen on the third eye, totally there. I said, I'll be able to write this down when I get up, because I always had a pad or an art pad near the stand with the bed. I could draw and write in. As I woke up, I'm laying there with this formula right in my head with my eyes open, right there. I'm getting up and an angel, huge angel, stands there and goes, Earth's not ready for this information. And he reached down to my head with his hand, huge hand, and goes like to my head right here, and goes like this. And you feel the formula dematerialize to equal E equals MC square. I was like, no, I was going to write it down. He says, not ready for it. And I understood what he meant. Telepathically, I knew. It was the formula that's not just dimensional space travel and all that. It's time travel and dimensional space travel and frequency travel, which Earth is definitely not ready for. And it's a higher formula. So what Earth could be ready for was E equals MC square. So that was it. That's all they were for. But I remembered it going divided by mass, M. I saw the M. So we can't go any further than that. But this is where the knowledge comes from, times come into the planet Earth as well. The scientists and the doctors, they see these frequencies, they get up there in their aspect, and they'll be allowed to bring back certain formulas or certain inventions. And that's how they come in. Or art, certain types of art, certain types of inventions to help the planet. So they're all out there. Everything has already been put out and put forth by Creator. And Creator has always said to me, even on the other side, when you go out there, you speak to the Creator, as we all can, and you say certain, I ask questions. I asked questions to Yehoshua, who's Sananda, and he said, well, a lot of times, a lot of souls will be out there, a lot of scientific types are going through this, and a lot of people or souls will get the information, the same information, and then they come back to the planet, but not all of them recall it, not all of them remember, and not all of them are given the opportunity to put it out. So one soul comes through with that information. So like E equals MC square, but many souls saw it, many others caught it, but weren't able to bring it in. And so when Einstein might have put it forth, some of them said, oh, that sounds familiar. I might have seen that. I don't know why. It was because they were out there in that dimensional space what math is. And this is how it's kind of done on all those levels. I don't know if I can tell you more stuff about Christ. I don't know how far you want me to go, Nick. I got that was a little sidetrack, but
That's relevant.
I hope it helps people understand what we're here for.
No, it was incredibly interesting, and it does help. So thank you for that. Yeah.
I can also see angels and the nature kingdom, which I've seen since I was a baby in a crib, the little nature spirits and the fairies. And anyone who's visited our house, as Nick has, you see our house is full of plants, and there's nature spirits. Each plant has a name on it, and the fairies and the elves that we have here, including a unicorn and a white dragon, and they will come through the house. Phyllis has seen them. People who visited who are psychics have seen them, and or they'll come over and hover in a little amber purpley ball or something and glow, and inside the amber purple ball or whatever they're showing as a color will be a little tiny fairy about that big fluttering, and they'll see their face. So behind us we have fairies and pictures here, but you can't see it. I got Pegasus here. So there's actually the Pegasus creature, the horse that flies, that is an actual nature kingdom being, like a unicorn is a nature kingdom being, but is a pure animal. It's a beautiful animal being. And one materialized in my apartment here, right in this where I'm sitting, back in it's hard to remember, 1980 something. I had these things down, but it's like hard to remember them all in time. But they've appeared and they dematerialize. And when they dematerialize, the unicorn leaves the essence of and it was wintertime. I had the deep earth smells, flowers, like a garden had been blooming in this room right here when it dematerialized. And it was physical, like a little pony. And each hair of its body, it was white, but each hair, it shimmered in gold. And when I looked at it, I telepathically, I talked to it. I said, hi. I said, I know I can't draw you or paint you. You're impossible. You're so beautiful. No one could paint you, because it's as if each hair on his body was tipped in gold, like an Abyssinian cat has tipped hairs with dark dots. So it's all the hairs were tipped in a golden shimmer. So the whole animal shimmered in gold, like sparkles. And it was the most beautiful creature you ever saw. Yet this unicorn has been with me since it's like a friend, you don't want to say a nature kingdom is a pet, they're not, but they come to you, they're drawn to you, and they want to be with you and just hang around you. And unicorns do protect us. They do help to protect your space in your house in some way from negative beings. But they're beautiful, and they can be any size they need to be. But they usually show up in a small little form, like a little miniature horse or a little pony size animal. They have a little beard on their chin, and a lion. They have a tail that has no hair, like a lion almost coming down, and then it gets towards big bushy tail coming down. So if you go on my websites, you'll see pictures I've painted of them the way they've seen them. We have markbrinkerhoff.com. That's art. So these actual creatures are real. They're very telepathic, and they're very full of love. And the nature kingdom, even now, they say hi to you all. They're here. But the nature spirits are hard to understand. They don't understand why people want to hurt things or animals or anything, but they do try to protect animals, some of these nature spirits. But they understand the way life is on the physical density, so they know that there's a time for birth, a time for death. So like a lightning bolt hits a tree, they know that their devic friend or nature spirit friend who's a tree spirit, his life or its life or her life at the time in the tree is now, the tree is stopped, but she doesn't stop or he doesn't stop. Now they go either to become a sylph, a spirit of the air, and all the nature kingdom graduates to become the angelic realm that we know as guardian angels and over all these grand angels and Christ angels and all, they graduate to that. So nature spirits are on every dimensional space that we've seen. I've seen them on the ships. They're in the plants that we have on ships, and they're all over the universe. And this is something Pan, I met Pan in the field in 1976. Pan, he's, if everybody knows who Pan is, he looks like the half goat body or deer body and a male torso on top, usually pointed ears and little tiny sprungs of a goat horn here, tiny little ones like this. he's only appearing that appearance because nature kingdom accepts that appearance as an animal form mix, because they play with these forms. And you'll see what we call centaurs or kentars. Those are the half human like horse person you all know as Sagittarius. And they're male or female projections. Any pattern on the body of the animal is acceptable. It could be anything they imagine. They can have flowers if they want on their body. They have spots, they have stripes, they have solid colors. And their skin tones could be any color they feel. All nature kingdom puts a skin tone on their body that they like or feel. If they look like they're pansy flower, they will put colors of the pansy on their skin or in the clothing they're wearing in their mind. They put this together on them. So everything's fun and whimsy with a nature spirit. Most of them are happy and joyful and fun. Gnomes are under the rocks and under the ground, and they work in the mineral area. The undines or the undines are the water spirits, and those are like mermaid looking beings and water babies, as they call them. Look like little bubbly people. They're very cute. But these are nature spirits of the sea and the ocean and the waves and the springs and the streams and lakes. I've seen them all and I've met them, so I know what they look like, and I tried to draw them. And when I met Pan in the fields, I was sky watching. I had my dog with me, a big white shepherd, and we were in the fields at like 2 a.m. or so. And I'm doing my thing to the spaceships, and it's snow on the ground. And I'm waiting. I'm just talking telepathically, and an energy surrounds me that felt like blissful love. And then the smell of flowers. So I thought the space people, because they come with that smell too. We call it the lilies of the valley, or the essence of sanctity, essence of sanctity. I need Phyllis to remind me of some of my things, like the essence of sanctity. So that showed up. So I thought, I'm going to turn around. There's either going to be an angel standing there, or it's going to be a materialized space beings, which they do and have done in my past. I turn around expecting something like that, and there's no spaceship, but a giant 20 some odd foot human like being standing there. That's Pan. And on his side are angels. And then lower down, looking at my height, because I'm not very tall, is a unicorn and a centaur and an elf of the field. And I'm seeing these like, what? And they're there, physical for me, but I see through them. They look like physical people, but you're kind of seeing through them at the same time. And then you see physicalness. So it's hard to explain how these beings materialize like that. But he appeared like that, and I'm looking at him, and I went to myself, oh, I'm expecting an angel. Oh, and he smiles and he says telepathically, he says, "Hi, I'm Fan," and I've seen him out of body, but this was a real deal coming on. So I'm like, wow, thank you for coming. And I said, I expected a spaceship behind me when that essence came around. And he laughs, right? And he said, I want you to let the people know, because that I'm not a demon or anything like that, that they try to think that I represent satanic beings, because they created Satan around, or satyrs around, Roman times, ancient mythology around satyrs being beings that run through the forest and go after nymphs and do things to them, children or people. And I know that because there was a little fawn standing nearby. They're called fawns. They look like a little child. They're almost like children with little goat-like shaggy bodies. They're very cute. So I'm looking at they're male or female, they appear as they feel. And I said, well, I never thought that. He says, no, but there are people out there that do. Can you let people know? And I said, sure. And I said, what do you want me to tell them? Anything else? And he says, tell them I'm actually an archangel, that I appear in this form for the earth. I'm the archangel of nature. That's what I'm told to tell people now, so people understand.
And you're doing an illustration.
I have, yes, right. In our book we're doing too, I have an illustration of Pan. I did that to show what he looks like in the Pan look, but I have a book, image I'm working on for the book right now of Pan as his archangel form. So you'll see what he really looks like. He told me, and he showed me, he showed me how he looks. I said, he's actually beautiful. Like Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, all these beautiful beings. Pan has darker hair, and he has these eyes that are like this. He's really magnificent. And he says, I'm an archangel, and people think I take this form, but I have to take the form for the nature kids, because he calls them his children, because they're all graduating and they just don't understand yet. They're little 5-year-old mind mentalities. Some of them, the little fairies and the flowers, are not like us, let's say, aware, like 12th grade even. They're, imagine like a little innocent kid, a little child, like 5 years old, and they take things exactly as they see it. So when people are destroying their plants, or or people just cut plants down without thinking, they just chop trees down, they get hurt. They go, oh, how can they do that? They don't understand.
Well, they
So he's supposed
don't
to.
even know they're evolving to be angels.
Yes, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, right. They don't understand that they're evolving to become an angelic being. They are so innocent. And as the angels work with them in different areas, sometimes the angels of the field will look like a guardian angel look. They don't have wings, but they look like what ancient mythology might call a nymph, right? With a robe. I mean, think of what they must have seen in the ancient times to get these names to these beings that are real nature kingdoms, and they might have called them nymphs, because the nymph that they call a nymph is actually an elf or a fairy of a tree or a bush. Maybe they're working in the bushes and the woods, and they come by and they think it's a nymph.
You know what it goes into? It goes into
This goes his hand.
Hey, what it goes into is that the lower astrals have perverted so much information that was pure and good.
Right. Yep,
And
that's
I'd
right.
like to just say that.
That's right. Nick, I forgot to even mention that. I need her. Oh,
You've got a wonderful
We've been
prompter,
together
though.
forever.
You've got the best teleprompter in the world.
I tell her she's the one who will come up with the things for me, because
I'm the wind beneath his
we've been
wings.
together since '78, and she's asked me every question you can imagine. I don't know every. And I've got to get back to some other stuff I talked about before. But so this is the little nature kingdom. I didn't expect to go into this, but these beings and the guys in our apartment are grown. When I first met our little elf Eflin, she was this big, like 4.5 inches. She's now this tall, like 4.5 feet. She's grown. Because why? Because fairies, as you talk to them, so talk to your plants and tell them how much you love them. If you get trees in your yard, pet them, talk to them, tell them, thank you for the beauty you bring. Thank you for the shade you give. Thank you for the life you bring, for the birds of the air who fly to you. You talk to them like that, and you acknowledge them with love. And they hear that watching you, and they say, oh my, this being understands me. They hear me. And then you get responses with love. Now, the Native Americans understood that, and they spoke with their trees before they cut one down for a canoe. They usually look for 3 trees in a triad form, and they would ask the birch trees and all in the area and which tree they felt to go to, which they needed. And they would ask them and give incense or sage and bark. They would burn kinnikinnick, the tobacco. Thanks for the guys over there. The kinnikinnick. And they would ask for that tree if they could use its skin to become their new canoe. That meant cutting the tree down. And they asked for that permission. And they burned certain incenses with them, like the sage and all, and whatever they used in like cedar. And if the tree accepted the scent coming into them, which we learned because it actually happened to Phyllis and I in Connecticut, we burned sage to a tree in thanks and love. And that tree, the smoke went up and made a right angle turn into the tree and breathed it in. It's supposed to go like that. It went right angle in. We had witnesses with us and everything. So Native people we knew told us that's rare. And it means if that happens, the tree spirit accepts you or whatever you're asking about it. So in this case, with Native Americans looking for a canoe, the smoke would go up and make a right angle turn into the tree. If it was okay, the tree accepted the blessing. If it didn't, it would smoke right up and they'd go find another tree. So this is how they communicated. They knew the little people, as they called them, and they had seen them. So we have humans today might have lost some of that ability, but I think it's all coming back for others, for the intuitives and the psychics who are open to that and accepting that these beings are existing in all our plants and in the woods. Remember when you're a little kid, you might be in the woods and it gets a little weird in the woods and then you get a little nervous feeling and all of a sudden you feel like you got to get out of here now. If anyone's had that feeling, that's the nature kingdom coming around to say, get out, get out, get out, leave, leave, leave. Sometimes they don't trust humans, but if you're a little kid, they want you to leave because they know it can be dangerous, or they might know about an animal that's in the distance and it might be coming towards you, like a mountain lion. But we don't know because we're a little kid in the woods. or a bear, something like that. So they'll say, get out, and they'll come with a fear energy to chase the child out. And I've known people that's had that happen to them. They run off and they get onto the road and they go, why did I do that? What was going on? I've been on that path before. And that's why.
Mark, there was one time when I was in California and I was with some dear friends, and they said, Nick, you've got to see the redwood forest with the huge, huge ancient trees. So they brought me to this forest, and those trees, as you know, are gigantic. They've been there forever, and they're huge, huge trees. And what I saw when I got there and I looked at this tree, it was the biggest one there. And I had this impulse, follow your impulse. I went over and I gave that tree a huge hug.
Yep.
Because I felt as though it was the right thing to do.
And it is. And those divas are those trees, those beings are so magnificent. They are huge, gigantic. They're hundreds of feet tall. These beings can be as high as they want. You know how big Pan really is? The Archangel Pan is bigger than a galaxy. Archangel Michael, they're bigger than galaxies. These beings' expanse is amazing. So when we think of how little we are and how much they love us and care for us and want to take care of us and make sure we're okay, because they were given command by the Creator to oversee and watch over us, the little souls who are like little sisters and brothers. And that is why those other ones, as we know, the fallen, got mad, because they got jealous. They said, why are we've been here first, we're the first, what we want us to babysit these, that kind of thing went on. Plus there's other things that went on with the satanics and the ones that file. I don't know if we get into that, but we got other reasons to talk, because
Mark, just to
I've
say,
got too much to say.
I want to maybe pause a second and just see if anybody here has just a quick question, like a one question you want to ask Mark. Mark has said so many amazing things here. And Linda, would you like to start? Do you have a question for Mark? You have to unmute. You got to unmute.
Mark, you hear me?
Yeah. Stay close to the screen. Ask a question.
Okay, Mark, you're just amazing. You and Phyllis, I met you. I don't know if you remember me, but I met you a couple of times.
Yeah.
You are just an encyclopedia of all what we need, if you're willing to listen. I know a lot of what you said, and it was so refreshing to just review that and for you to get into even more. Because, let's face it, if we don't all stick together, there are others that think we're Lulu. That's why I joined the group, because I was searching for 40 some odd years for a group like this. I was sick for 40 some odd years because I had a lot of beings, and I saw a lot of visions, and I saw a lot of this and that. And growing up as a child, I just couldn't connect with anybody, and they thought I was nuts. But it's so refreshing, and I always repeat this to Nick and the others, whoever is listening, that as a community, it's so refreshing to know that we have this connection with each other. And it was so wonderful for you to get in depth in explaining a lot of this, where, people don't have this sort of knowledge. You go way beyond, which we appreciate. And that's why you came here purposely, to help us to understand and to break it down for us, the people that are open to wanting to hear this or suffering, and you give them the answers that they need, which is quite wonderful from the God, the Christ God that you originated from. That's why you came here, and he started your heart.
That's right. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Linda.
Linda, you're on target. And I don't know if you've come to any lectures in our past, but we've been, as you know, put off by this whole thing going on. But I would love to. I would love to be more involved with you and Phyllis. And Nick has helped so much with this wonderful, wonderful meeting that he has, through thick or thin, stuck it out every other week, sending everything out to all the people necessary and talking it up with all the different times that we've been going through, and especially something like this. I just think it's so, so wonderful you and Phyllis are born on this earth to share what you know. And I personally appreciate it so much, because I was lost 40 some years.
I just
Right.
found myself 5.5 years ago.
Wow.
Rediscovered.
You're
Linda,
reading.
thank you so much.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
now we can. Yeah, it broke up for just a second.
Yeah,
Freezing
you know, the-
like that.
got a
Okay.
little technology
Like
here, freezes here and there.
Okay.
I
Now
froze
let's
again.
move
But,
if I can. Sonia, did you have a question? You gotta unmute. Sonia, you gotta unmute. So unmute, and then you can ask. Yeah, go ahead now, please.
So
Ask your question and be close.
Okay,
Wow.
when Mark was talking, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, go
When
ahead.
Mark was talking about the nature spirit, I recall just before Sandy hit Manhattan, okay?
Yes.
Where I used to live on the 5th floor, I was eye level with the trees all around me, okay? And I used to take my crystal and send them healing energy every day. I would take my crystal and point to the trees to heal them because I know Manhattan's trees are really like in bad shape. So I was sending energy. And then soon before, like just before Sandy hit, it was like in November, October, like those leaves started falling down. And then I said, is it my imagination? But the branches of the trees, the 2 trees in front of me, were making like a heart shape. I saw a heart shape. And then soon after that, Sandy hit and those trees were gone. And I was saying, was the trees saying goodbye to me and thanking me for the healing? So now when I listen to what you have to say, it verifies, it confirms what I was feeling from the trees. Thank you.
That's true. They are amazing beings. You want to? Okay, I'm full of stories. I can't help. I walk down the block. Where are we? We're on 84th Street. Okay, I walk down the block. We got trees, we got flowers that people plant by their brownstones and these little vases that come out. I walk down, I'm smiling and telepathically brushing the flowers as I go by, telling them how beautiful and I love them. If I come by a tree, if you're walking on the sidewalk, I probably look weird. So I walk down it, there's a tree, and I'll go over and pat the tree and give it love and tell it I love you. Then I'll walk to the next group, pat another group, a little greens, whatever they are, and I'll just brush them and do that. That's my walk down the block normally. So one day, this is how the nature spirits and your angels, when you're talking with, when you're brushing the plants and talking to flowers in the way, tell the flowers, thank you. You don't have to whisper, you can whisper it to them. You could say, flowers, thank you so much for the beauty you bring to this block, the scent of their essence. We love it. Thank you for everything. You're so beautiful. Tell them they're the most beautiful tree or the beautiful flower you've ever seen. They are cute little fairies. I hate to say it. They know. They have this little pride in them. This is their plant. This is their body. Even though it's their physicalness, they're a spirit like out of their body as an elf or a nature spirit. That's their true form, but they're using these plants to be their body and activate and work here on the earth. They know it's temporary. Yeah, they know it's temporary. But if you like a plant in your house that might be having a problem, you can't get it to be better and seems to be dying, you can't figure it out. You could take a branch cutting or a cutting of the plant and tell the fairy, I'm going to take this now and root it. Let me try rooting it. So you put that in the water while you still got the other plant there, because that's the fairy. And she knows or he knows you're doing that. And if it starts getting roots, you say, okay, we've got roots now, because that fairy's still working with its branch that you just cut off or twig or whatever you took from it. And he or she will work with that. I've got a couple of aloes. One fairy's taking care of his aloes. They're all babies from his plant. So he's taking care of them right now. And if I give one away, they'll go find a fairy that wants to be the aloe plant. And they'll say, I've got one. They give me the name and everything. That fairy takes over that aloe and you could give it as a gift to somebody. So if you got your plant sprig, let's say, that grew roots, and I know this other one's having problems in its base, its planter or something, and it really looks like it can't be fixed, which has happened to us here with one of our fairies. I say, okay, we got the roots. I'm going to plant this now. Transfer yourself to this now. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to dump that out. And we dump it out, and this now I plant it becomes another whatever we got back here. We have different kinds of plants. So we got a different plant and the fairies now in that plant. But because you acknowledge the fairies, if you have plants in your house, talk to them daily, talk to them all the time. Talk to them like you've got your dog or cat greeting you at the door, because they will run to your door and greet you. We've had that. We open the door and we hear, hi, wait, woo. I hear them all the time. We're home. They know, like your pet dog and cat knows when you're on your way home. They know it. They're in link with you. You can be telepathically in sync with your plants miles and miles away. You can be in California, your plants are here in New York. They telepathically will communicate with you. I knew a scientist, he's passed on now, Paul Sullivan. He was doing experiments with that back in the 70s. And he talked about these experiments they did with the plants and how they had a man who had let's say a ficus or some kind of plant. He had a plant and he was very close to this plant. They set that plant up by some electrodes attached to it and attached the other electrodes, because these scientists were the genius guys with electrodes and all that. They attach it to some mechanism that can open up his automatic garage door. Or the other one was a coffee pot in the kitchen on a counter to percolate on a timer. He was someplace else, another state, somewhere else. And they said, okay, you're far away now. Telepathically send to your plant that you want the coffee pot to be on when I get home. I'll be back in about 2 hours. This is amazing. They watched this plant, they monitored the thing, and they're in this house. And the plant, within a couple hours go by, and he's on his way home. Now, they don't know he's on his way home really, but how far he was, but the plant knew. And it started doing its percolating of the coffee pot electronically through its frequency. And they watched the thing start perking. The guy pulls up on the driveway and the coffee's ready for him when he came home. How did that plant know what time he would get home? And this blew their mind. They did it with the driveway door opener. They had another plant, the same type of thing, another one of his plants, who he loved, his plant. And like you love Linda, like Sonia, like you love the tree. And we have trees, you just love them, all of them. But those were your trees because they're outside your window. So you kind of claim them. And they understand that. They telepathically know that this being out of all this building acknowledges us and we love her. That's what goes on. This is what goes on because I've seen it and they do tell me all the time. So this man's driveway door opened up and all that stuff. So they proved the telepathy between plants and humans, and especially with plants you care about, that you're close to. So this actually works and it's real. Did I tell you the rest about what Pan said? I think I did. You see how I go all over the place?
You did.
So
Mark,
Pan,
I think
he's
because of
huge.
the time,
And he
because
said
of the
that
time, I just want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to say something to you if we can. Doreen, would you like it to ask Mark a question, please?
Yes, thank you. Thank
Hi,
you,
Doreen.
Mark, for your presentation. You mentioned something early on about the future and that civilizations, I think, come and go, and this one is going. Could you elaborate a little bit on what's to come, please?
Okay. Okay. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, they were talking about global warming and global cooling. That was back then. They called it the hothouse effect or the greenhouse effect, and how they thought that would melt this and this would happen or that would happen. Then it changed into the cooling effect of whatever they thought was going to happen, that there's going to be an ice age. Well, this is all in the crew and my friends and where we come from have always said, it's not about that, it's about the sun. They've always told me that. And I told my dad that. I said, this thing's going to happen with the solar system and it's about the sun. Whatever they're talking about. So in the 60s and 70s, they were coming through this greenhouse effect. I go, well, no, it's the sun. It's the planet, it's the system, it's the sun. So whatever humans on Earth who are here for a limited time right now, whoever are here saying these things, that if this melts or that happens, it's humans' fault, stop this, it's the cows, it's the this. It's not that at all, because we had dinosaurs here, we had things go on too, back millions of years ago. So every 12 to 13,000 years, a cyclic event occurs in the stars and the systems and different galaxies as well. It's a frequency, it's different things, but the creators set up these different types of cyclic changes. This physical density we're on now, this is the lowest dense plane of the dense realities. This is the heaviest of them all. And this is not where our true home is. Our true home are on the higher frequencies, over the 7th and 8th and 9th and 10th. That's where we come from, the high frequencies. These 7 planes and below are not our true home. These are still the areas where souls learn on. And each planet has its own what we think of, what you want to say is like an energy field or aura or soul energy or auric field. And in the auric field energy of each solid dense planet are these 7 planes of frequencies, of dense planes that are different dimensional spaces. That's when, and if there's a life form on the planet and it dies, it's a physical dense form, it dies, it goes to those frequencies where it acclimates itself. The thing is souls forget, and they forget, and they keep coming back, and they keep coming back to go into the physical density incarnating. And part of the teaching that we bring, Phyllis and I, and the crew, and Yehoshua wants me to speak about all the time now, he said to tell the truth. And when I asked him what truth, the truth I know here or the truth I know there, and he said, from space, from home, from space where I come from, he said all of it. And I went, oh my gosh, they're not going to understand it all. He said, no, tell the truth, tell all of it, because man has been misunderstood here. Man has misunderstood the teachings. There's so much trickery going on with these low density beings, these fallen ones, we'll call them the tricksters, that Phyllis and I call it fake ancient news, because they'll put in stuff into the ancient texts thousands of years ago, thousands, right? They knew all along what's going on. And as a seer might hear from a good being on the other side, from Creator sent an angel to talk to some saint or somebody in ancient time, an ancient seer, there's other beings standing by nearby, listening in right there. And they're hearing what this being is saying to that seer who's hearing it clear. But they'll talk to another seer who doesn't hear it clear. And these other ones will start whispering and manipulating that seer. So you get all this misconstrued, confusing prophecies. You get prophecies that are all out of whack. They don't make sense. And I'm here to tell you now, who's ever listening, I know you guys are listening, but there's other people in other dimensions listening too. When you hear people who are channeling, and Yehoshua said in the ancient texts, beware of the scryers and the seers and those that are talking to spirits. That means channelers today in our language. I don't channel. I'm connected and I hear exactly from my overpart. Phyllis made this for me, lucidly remote view, because we couldn't figure out how to explain what I'm doing. I'm in 2 places at once. I can see through my oversoul's eyes at the same time here on Earth. So when I ask a question to my overpart, Phyllis might ask me a question, I'll just connect like that right away, right there. And I'm seeing through his eyes or her eyes, its eyes. They're all androgynous beings, but they appear in certain ways. So I'm looking through those eyes and I can tell Phyllis where we are right now, what's going on these other frequencies, what we're doing. So Ingo knew I could do that because he would ask me questions. So he would say that. So when Ingo passed away, the first thing he did, it appeared to me, he goes, look, I'm in my spacesuit. So this is Ingo. So we knew all these things can happen. So we got these seers. And Ingo said this. He said to me, be careful of prophesying and telling, what was that he said? Predicting. Because one prediction's off and you're known for that prediction, even though you've been accurate 100% of the time, one goes off and they come after you for that one. He says, because they're always tricking us. They're always around to trick. So when everybody says, what do you think about this? And what do you think when this is going to happen? I can't say this is going to definitely happen in this year and that, even though sometimes I'll be given dates and they actually happened on that date. I don't tell people except Phyllis. So it's kind of creepy when it happens. But if you announced it somewhere on the internet and it didn't happen, like it does to these prophecy people, seers or psychics, it can happen and it doesn't come true. So you got them all after people doing that. So Ingo even said, careful, don't predict, because it's not really the way to go with things, especially the way it is today. So now remember, we got negative beings or fallen angels, we want to call them, they're lower beings that fell. They really did fall, and they fell where Creator sent them to, which is what I know from the other side. And I've read it there too on the other side. And I tried to research it here on Earth on the internet and couldn't find any information on what I've read on the other side. And when I discussed that, they said that's because it's here on the other side and it was taken away from this side. Now, Council Nicaea, they had information that they took away so that the people wouldn't know the truth, because they want to manipulate and keep control and power over people. So what was controlled was, we all know in the ancient text, let us make man in our image. That is not aliens, although people want to say it is, but it actually works with aliens. It actually does work with low dense physical frequency aliens who do manipulate genetics and DNA. Yeah, they do. And yes, Earth people were in the ancient time manipulated with genetics to make their brains larger and the bodies stronger so that they can incarnate into them. But that's another thing. But when Creator went, let us make man in our image, it meant the threefold Creator, the Creator, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And the Creator is an omniscient being of everywhere. It's within everything. Jesus, or Yehoshua Sananda, comes to us in the form he does to represent the Creator in a form that we can relate to. And that's how he's told it to me. He says, I am who I am, but I come to this in this form to be a representation to the children, to his children, so they can relate to him easier. Holy Spirit is the action, the power and the action of the word in action. And on a physical density, it's the Creator with the love of Son, the Son and love of Creator to each other is the Holy Spirit energy. But that is also Sananda. That is also a representation of Sananda. So it's understanding when we speak forth our words in this physical dense reality that we're in here on this planet, or any physical dense planet, anywhere, any dense reality this is, when we speak the word that comes out of our mouth and whatever we're asking for, or whatever we hate, or whatever we dislike, that's why Jesus said, speak good, be good, let your tongue be the sword. That's what he meant. If you speak bad, it's a sword. It stabs you and other people. And that sword's sharper than an actual sword cutting someone's arm off, because their mind will replay and replay the anger or the pain or the words that were spoken to them as children or as adults, doesn't matter who. That word replays again and hurts the same way in their heart. And that's what he meant. Beware of the mouth, the tongue, the hardest thing to control on the physical body. But he also said to control the dense bodies and their urgings and cravings and their what they want on this physical density is pleasures. So you have to control that, because you are the master of the body. The soul inside is the master. We are the driver of the car. We're not the car driving us. So we are driving that car. This is how the metaphor I use for that. So that the soul is in the car. We are the car driving the car. We're that being. But the body of the car, the physical body is the car. But it could be any form or shape, any kind. So we lead cars, but we take on other cars, right? And sometimes they're big and sometimes they're small. But we're not to judge them by what they look like, right? So that this is where the soul is driving, and these beings can manipulate us, and we have to be careful for that. And I mean, I might have gone off track for a second, but please understand, we're here to spread the word of who Creator is. When people say, what's my mission? What am I here for? What am I doing? Okay, you're an artist, you're a musician. Well, maybe it's to bring beautiful music and not satanic evil music. You know, like you hear in hard rock, dense stuff that hits the soul and the solar plexus, breaks the frequencies up. And all of a sudden they're into drugs and heavy duty stuff like sex and powers like that. You can't let that manipulate the soul. So you have to purify and cleanse, keep the thoughts on a higher thought. And Jesus told me, he said, if your thoughts be on me and Creator, no harm comes to you. He meant, let your thoughts be on me. Talk to him. He talk to him like your best friend right near you, because that's how I talk to him. And he answers. But he also guides us out of the way of things, or the angels, we can call on them. So I've been rescued by Jesus many times. And I said, Jesus, angels, help me now. And I should have been dead a couple of times. Head-on collisions, as well as falling down, slipping on stairs. I was carrying stuff that I should have cracked my head open, right? Dead, broke my neck. I was levitated, caught in the air by the angels on both sides of my body, and levitated 15 feet to the front of our door and out on the sidewalks. To that day, and engulfed in love and euphoric bliss and smells of flowers. So this is what will happen if we call out. But we have to trust, know who he is, know who Creator is, trust in your heart, trust in your soul and all your mind. And what is the other one? We trust with our heart, soul, and mind, everything. Oh my God, everything that is him. And do not doubt for an instant, because he hears us all. He hears everybody's prayer. Creator hears all of us, no matter what he doesn't hear me, I'm not worthy. No, it's not that. He rescued us when he died on the cross. His blood poured out all the way. He emptied his blood on the planet Earth because he claimed it back. He does this, Yehoshua, in many solar systems and many other galaxies.
Where the fallen
And
have,
when the, yes,
become-
where the dense physicals, where the fallen have taken control. So he claims back the frequency because the Baal, the creature that we call Baal or Baal, and that being is like a satanic creature. It actually looks like a goat god thing that they all talk about, that Behemoth. And that one pushed on that. That's a whole nother teaching that we brought from the ships.
I think, but
We can't, I don't think we can get into that,
What
but
should-
Nick, we've talked
Mark,
to you
I
about.
just, if I may, because of the time, I just want to
Of the
make sure that
sun.
everybody gets a chance to just ask one question. Anthony, you've been very patient. Do you have a question you'd like to ask Mark
will,
right now?
I cut two little comments. So I also, at around 7 years old, had a drowning near-death experience. I'm curious whether or not you think that 7-year-old, the 7-year number there's something to it. And the other comment, you keep on mentioning the flower smells. I also, Lily of the Valley was my favorite. I was down on the ground all the time with Lily of the Valley. I just love that scent. I don't really have a question from these things. I'm just curious if you have any comments on drowning or Lily of the Valleys.
Oh, well, that's the thing. My old friend who's on the other side now, Bryce Bond, and I was his cameraman for his TV show back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. He always kidded about that, but he said Lily of the Valley, that was our clue. When the space people showed up, the Lily of the Valleys shows up around the ships. When they materialize into the field, Lily of the Valley is the sense of
the
flowers.
good guys.
It's the good guys. It doesn't mean just Lily of the Valley. Just that's the word we gave it, meaning multiple flower gardens. But Lily of the Valley is one of the scents that's very strong. And honeysuckle and roses. And Doreen, I'm sorry, it's about the sun and what's going to happen. And it's every
It's a magnetic
13 to 12,000 cycle that happens to the suns. And right now, it starts from the centers of the galaxies and it starts coming through as a frequency. And they've been seeing these other suns going through micronovas coming towards, from that center coming out. And our suns and all the stars are nearby us. These suns or stars are going through frequency excursions as well, where they have a pole shift as well that flips them. But that happens.
Flips every 12.
Yeah,
12 years.
every so many years.
But when our pole, our north and south magnetic pole migrates and flips, that causes
A frequency.
a plasma energy that goes to the sun and back again. So the
I know
sun might
Phyllis is
make
talking.
over.
Good.
Ingo actually got me involved about a year and a half ago. I don't like to be on camera.
She doesn't want to be.
With the suspiciousobservers.org. So if you're looking for information, he thinks it's going to happen sooner than later. So we don't know if it's
Well,
10, 20, 30
he used to think it was
years,
100 years.
10, 20, 30 years. But the magnetic poles are migrating faster and faster. They've actually
stopped
reporting.
Yeah, there was a place that we report the magnetic poles,
So that you're going to
and
see
they stopped it.
You're going to see a lot of changes in weather and
We're having it now.
Lightning will become stronger, things of this nature. So, just keep your eyes open.
You're going to see the weather shifting. They're going to blame it, the Earth humans are going to blame it on global this. It's not global that. And Doreen, this is what we're talking about. You see all these guys in all these millions and billions of dollars, and they're building rockets, right? All these guys, Musk, whatever. And they're building underground bunkers. We have cities under the planet. Yes, we have them in England. We have them all over the place. I knew in the 70s, when I was in England, I met people who've actually been in them and seen them. They were ex-military people. So I couldn't talk about it back then, but I tried to. So these things exist, but there's good guys and bad guys, right? We got some of the dark, what do you want to call them, the black hats, whatever we want to call them. We want to call them reptilians. That's what they are too. So the thing is when you got their places underground, under all of our America, under Canada, it's all over the planet. There's underground tunnels from thousands and thousands of years ago that the space people put there too, because they were utilizing them. Different beings, not the good, just different beings. When we say good guys and bad guys, they were utilizing that for minerals, because this planet Earth is known as a resource planet in our solar systems and other galaxies. So if you need certain minerals, you come to this planet if you're in this area. Or if you need water, you come to this planet because it's in this area. And that's why you'll see different types of beings show up. They might be very strange looking, but they're not here to harass the human, just getting some minerals.
But just
But-
just to simplify this, because you just have so much information. Just to simplify it is Ingo sort of, I didn't know why I got involved in studying this a year and a half or so ago. And I said to Mark one day, why did I subscribe to this site?
Yeah, she never subscribed to anything, ever
to anything.
online.
And then Ingo tuned in through his overpart and he laughed and he said, I made her do it.
He said, I focused her to that, do that.
So Ingo,
So Ingo
was
is
the
a
one
scientist.
that told me to go study the, so if you want it, if you'd like to have a clue on what's actually going down, go to suspiciousobservers.org, study the astrophysicist there named Ben Davidson. He's got a ton of YouTubes up, and you will learn amazing things. And they I think he's getting ready to publish another book, The Coming Cataclysms.
No.
I mean, we trust him, but we just don't know timing because nobody really knows timing.
No.
But it's sooner than you think. But
Now, the other timing
I
is,
just want to say one more thing.
Yep.
The thing that you have to ask yourself is, do you really want to incarnate back into the Stone Age? So let's say we die in this lifetime or we ascend in this lifetime, whatever you want to call it. Do you really want to come back to planet Earth and have to, learn how to farm again? I mean, this is what we're looking at.
I know there's a bunch of souls out there. I know New Agers and all that because I'm New Age because I'm in UFOs and nature spirits. But they're all saying fifth and fourth dimension. You ever heard that one yet, guys? Back in the 80s, they were going, we're moving into the fourth dimension. Back in the 70s, they were trying to say something like that, but they didn't. They were saying, oh, we're becoming more enlightened. That was their word. So in the 80s came, we're going to move into the fourth, maybe, dimension. Then they thought they were in the third dimension, which you're not. So then they go, you're only three-dimensional physical. This is all that's here. We're not in the third dimension. The third dimension is another frequency that's over on that side when we leave our body and get over there if we die here. This has been confused by the humans on this planet back in the 70s and 80s. When I tried to figure it out in the 80s, I said, why are they thinking we're moving into a fourth dimension? Don't they understand that doesn't work like that? They don't understand it. Have they never been to these areas? Then they wouldn't know. But we figured it out. People were saying we're in the third dimension. And it started with the scientists talking about first dimension, second dimension, and this is third dimension. We're in the third dimension because we hold a cup. They just mean this is 3D. Three-dimensional reality is 3D. On different dimensions we go to, even if you're out of body or if you're on the other higher frequencies, on the 12th plane, 12th dimensional planes, where we come from as oversouls, so it's the higher frequencies and beyond that, 33rd dimensions, fourth dimension. I've been on all those planes. I traverse these planes. And the thing is, they don't get it. So I figured it out. They said, since scientists were saying we're 3D or third dimension, they said, now we're in the third dimension. And then after that, people think there's a fourth dimension. That's how it goes. So if you realize, and anybody who's going out of body, I think, Anthony, you've gone out of body, right? Tony? You're going out of body. You go out and you're 3D there. You're touching things there. You're on the high frequencies. If you're out with us in the over parts, you're out there. You're 3D. This is 3D. Everything is three-dimensional on those sides. You could touch a human. You're not going through a human. The only time you're going through a human is if you're on another frequency and they're on a different frequency. So if you're out of body or doing a Akashic frequency test or something, and you go into a pass, people will be walking through you. But you're still physical on your dimensional space right there. I witnessed the Annunciation. I was taken there. I was doing a rosary and I was taken there. Physically taken. I was like against the wall and I was touching things. I could smell the cooking food, hear the dogs barking in the distance, people milling. I can hear the sounds and everybody speaking another language, which I figured was Aramaic. But even though I heard them speaking, I could hear it milling as in English in my head, what it was being translated to. And I witnessed Blessed Mother becoming little Mary, 14 so years old, being asked by Archangel Michael. And I saw the whole
Gabriel.
thing. I mean, I'm sorry, Gabriel. Same, thanks. Gabriel. And I know Michael too. But so we were in three-dimensional, I was in three perspectives at the same time, against the wall, watching in the house, behind little Mary on the side where she was mending something, like sewing something. And when Archangel shows up, I was behind him, about 5 to 6 feet behind him. So I was seeing three perspectives and physical. And that is where you're the witness as well as the observer, as well as there. So when Creator does this for you and gives you this experience to be mind, body, spirit, all in the same places at the same time in different ways and aspected, it takes your beingness into a whole different understanding. And this has happened to me since I was a little kid.
Yeah, but you
things
should
like that have
finish
happened.
that vision by saying that
Um,
she was impregnated by the Holy Spirit.
Yes, when he said that and asked her.
It actually Mark.
And I heard it in
witnessed
Aramaic. I
Mark,
heard the whole thing in different
You
language.
witnessed it. So anybody saying anything else is absolutely lying.
She did not meet Angel, Archangel, Gabriel in the garden. She did not do that. The angels come through, they powerful like that.
And just to sum that up, a few years later, Mark got a video of these people that did visits to the Holy Land, and he actually visited the house that Mary was allegedly raised in, and it was identical to what he saw in that mystical
Then we got the
vision.
video. Yeah, yeah.
It was
I described the house to Phyllis. I said, the house with a window way up there and a door. And what's that window for? Circulation? What's that window? 8-9 feet up in the wall, a little window. I was like, what the heck? So I was looking at everything and touching the wall. And I saw a stove with cooked pot on it, cooking. There was a cabinet near it with glass in it, with the triangle like glass things. I didn't know that they did that kind of work back then. Who knew? I didn't expect it. I wasn't expecting glass on the cabinets, but they had Roman glass and they had crisscross frames like that with a glass cabinet, and there was dishes in it, like plates or something, but it was over a stove in a corner. And I'm watching this, it's like looking at that. I smell it. It's cooking, smelled like some kind of stew. And looking around, there was a little carpeting on the floor. There was a curtain on the door. That door was open, but there was a wind blowing through. The curtain was moving. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. But when we got years later a video by Penny and Bob Lord, they sent something in the mail and I was told to go look at it. I'd usually toss it with paperwork. So I opened it up and then I was drawn to look at a spot on the paper. That's what they do, make you look. And there it was about the House of Loretto. And I went, what's that? So I'm looking at it and reading it, and it says the House of Blessed Mother's family that was teleported from Jerusalem all the way to Italy. So that when they took the video, we bought the video and we saw the interior, and it was exact. It was exact what I saw. The stove,
Mark.
everything was there. And where the window was is there. It's all this.
Just that subject alone, I could get really into that, but I just want to, with the time left, I just want to see if anybody else has a chance to ask you one question. So if I may, let me just move it to that. Jim, you've been very patient. Do you have a question you'd like to ask Mark at this time?
Sure. Well, thank you very much. This is fantastic. And I love the Ingo Swan stories. And I loved when we were able to meet in person and you showed us Ingo's artwork. Freaking amazing. Anything you could suggest or recommend for people that are studying or learning remote viewing?
Anything with Ingo, because he's real.
Absolutely.
He had a little contention with some people, but I don't want to go into that.
That's not important.
I would say follow Ingo first. I don't know. I know he had something out in a video one time, or something was out. Maybe it's a reel-to-reel thing. I don't know what it was. Cassette. I don't know. He had put something out with the remote viewing. But anyone that was his training under him, Montego maybe.
Sure, Montego's good. Do you teach remote viewing, Mark?
No.
But what he does teach is how to link up to your oversoul and your higher self.
That will help you remote view automatically, I think.
Yeah.
We do a teaching that was allowed to bring in from the ship. We teach it on the ships to the Therians, meaning Therians, people of just the next dimensions over from here right now, who are physical people too, and they actually can have children. Sometimes they don't, but if they die, they kind of dematerialize. It's kind of one of those kind of situations. Sure. But that's one of your places where you can actually still have physical, dense life, not like this one, which is heavier, but a life where you can work in space too at the same time. So when you think of some of these beings that come in to visit, like Eisenhower, the Etherians visited him, and they were trying to bring information to help them to progress and to become part of the space program that's around our galaxy and solar system. Oh, warning. The Galactic Federation of Light is not one of our crews out there. They're a phony baloney group that's on this planet, and they're pretenders. They pretend to be Ashtar, Jesus, and every other
I mean, the people
master you can think of
the
or
people
teacher.
are sincere.
Yeah, they're
The
well.
people are sincere. But
That's the thing is
who they're speaking with.
yeah, that's why I say channelers. You got to be prepared. You know, don't channel if you don't have to. But if you're going to try to channel, and you get some being talking to you that says he's Jesus, or he says he's Sananda, or he says he's Ashtar, or some other saint or Michael archangel, careful. You have to test all spirits. Christ warned of this.
Beware of
These are the false teachers coming through.
Beware of compliments.
Compliments, thank you.
If a spirit is too complimentary to you, run, don't walk.
Yeah, they do
Run,
not.
do not walk. Get out of there fast.
Right. They'll say you are. Oh, what bothers us mostly is when they come through, dear beloved children of, whatever they're saying. It sounds too flowery. They do not talk to you like that, and and they definitely do not do this. I am Archangel Michael coming to you now. And when they end and say, this has been Archangel Michael or Master Jesus leaving you now, that is fake.
No,
red flag. Red flag. Red flag.
Now, Ingo told me he will not
you've been
channel.
very patient, Carol. We have.
Wait, hang on. What did Ingo tell you?
Ingo said
he won't channel.
He will
Don't
not
cut
channel.
off, Ingo.
Ingo said, I will not channel people. Do not tune into me and challenge me. I do not like channels. He did not believe in it because he knew they were tricksters, what goes manipulating. So I talked to him until I'm just like that with him. I
do not do that.
Well, tell him I said hello. And he's a big fan of his work.
Carol, come on. We got a few more
Jim,
minutes.
what's your last name again? Jim, what was your
Jim.
last name?
Jim Roma.
R-O-M-A?
That's
yeah. Roma.
Okay. Because you need
Carol,
somebody's name to say sometimes,
Okay.
Jim Roman says hi.
Gotcha. I can give you that information, Mark. I can give
guess what? Because we're talking about him, he is tuned in.
To do that. So, Carol, go ahead, please. We're almost out of time now.
I was just interested in the nature spirits. I've had experiences myself. What do they sound like?
Oh, telepathically, Carol. But they have little voices depending on how big their size is. They could be a regular little tiny, like a child's voice, and sometimes teenage sounding voice. When they get taller and bigger, like a tree diva or tree spirits that are 20 some odd feet tall, or depending what sex they might appear to be today, what they're feeling to be, they'll sound like men or they'll sound like women as they're getting bigger. So our elf is about this high. She sounds like a cute little teenager when she talks.
In my experiences, I heard like glass sounds, tinkly sounds. That's what I've heard.
Okay, then you're dealing right then with the nature spirits that are very young, and they do sound like winds and bells and tinkling sounds, but you get a telepathic voice. You'll hear or know what they're saying telepathically. Okay, they're telling me that too, because it's almost like speed talk, but you can't make it out, but it sounds like high frequency bells or tunes. And that is also very young, sweet nature spirits about this big sometimes. So yeah, that is, but you'll be telepathic. You get their message telepathically. They love you. They'll say they love you. And if they don't have the word love yet, they haven't learned that word. We love you. I love you. When you teach it to them and say, this is the word we use for love, and you put that energy to them, they're sending that energy back anyway. And now they understand that's the energy that they are sending. That's what we call love. And these fairies and these kids, they go out and visit fairies in the park, and they come back and bring me fairies from the park, and we had a Pegasus coming in here. It was a small one, probably at 2 feet. I had the windows open in the living room, and I heard flapping wings. I was drawing something on the table here, and I looked at it, I was like, what the heck? And the fairies call them whirlywind. They're horses, but they call them whirlywinds. So he said, sounds like whirlywwind came in. So they brought a whirlywwind in, and when I looked in the living room, there was a little horse hovering, flapping in the wind in the living room, and it flew out the window later. But it was like a little Pegasus. And it was white. And we had a dragonfly through too, and our cat we had at the time followed it into a closet behind me over here. And the closet door was open a little bit, and flapping wings went by from the window, came from the living room, flapped into the closet. The cat ran in and looked in there and came out. If Phyllis was here, we heard it.
It was physical.
You can hear it like a leathery sound of flapping.
Right,
And it was
right.
A little dragon.
I skipped the man right next to me here. Hal, I forgot and I skipped him. Hal, go ask a question.
Oh no.
No, you froze.
What about the Sealy court? Does that exist at all? Is it just mythology or?
You broke up. I didn't understand what you said. Froze.
And are they?
Jim, do you hear them freezing?
They are freezing up. Like Nick always says, Hal, get closer to your computer.
Jim, you're the only one that was moving. That's why I asked you, because I thought everybody froze at the same time.
No, I was just wondering about the Sealy court, if they exist or not. You know, the green man, the god, the goddess, if they've got any reality to them.
Oh, who?
A fairy court?
Yeah, they were known, the Sealy court, the Sheed.
Is he talking about history?
Is this mythology?
Are you speaking?
That's what I was wondering, if there's any reality to it. The green man and things like that.
Green man. Well, that would be
not a good
thing.
Yeah.
They've talked about that. There's beings that are here that manipulate and play games, and they materialize to scare people. There's also the hounds of hell, the whatever those dogs, that red-eyed dogs. Those things are not light. Those are not nature spirits, but they're creatures that are working with the dark side, let's say. So as for fairy courts or something like that, I thought maybe that's what you were saying. I know there's like mythological things with the fairy queen and all these things, but the truth is there are no queens and kings in that sense. But a lot of times there is a leader in an area, like an angel of a field or an elf of a field who's in control, in charge of that area of a big field, like Central Park has an angel of Central Park, and also elves and gnomes that are in charge of certain things. So they would be your leader to go to if you're a gnome, but they're not called kings or anything. Oh, that would be mythology. Yet in ancient times, they might have went along with that to talk to the people hundreds of years ago. If they understood kings and queens, they would say, yeah, he's our king or she's our queen. They might say that to be the leader. So in that way, it plays with their mythology teachings that they would have talked to them in that time. Today, our elves and fairies wouldn't talk to us in kings and queens, but they might say, who's in charge, you know. They all know.
Thank you very much.
On the whole planet and galaxies, Pan's in charge of everything. He's the nature god, not the god, but you know, that's what you think of as the god of nature. He's the archangel of nature. He's not a god, but he is who he is. But all the fairy kingdom, and all the angels, and all the realm, all of them know he's the one who you go to, who's in charge. Pan has done miracles for me when I've asked him, amazing miracles. And people have called me and said, Mark, can you talk to Pan and ask him for this? Can you please do this or whatever with some ice storms or rainstorms or whatever's going on? And I asked, get in right in there to him, because he's asked me to paint his children in the past. He's materialized here. So when I asked him, I said, can you do something to, because he's told me how things are set up with the weather. He says, they got their things that they do, and their orders are to do things a certain way with frequencies around the earth. If man builds up too much hate, anger, and areas of murder in an area, a storm will come to that area to cleanse it. Or something's going on in Russia, something will come to cleanse an area. So we got to think of what's going on in these areas when these crazy things happen with bad storms that come from nowhere.
But there's also HARP too.
And HARP, I forgot HARP Earth. But that, we won't go into that. They do stuff. But if it's dealing with nature, they're going to cleanse a certain area. So I asked Pam one time for something that was happening to our friend in the Carolinas.
Marty.
She's on the other side now, but she had an oxygen tanks in her house. She had to have oxygen, which means she needs electricity. And this is in North Carolina. She calls up and says, Mark, they're going to predict an ice storm and a blizzard coming to the Winston-Salem area. Can you ask Pan if he can do something? Because if my oxygen lights and everything goes out, I'll be in trouble really bad, you know, because she had a bad thing of lupus. She died of actually a lot of that stuff that happened to her. So I asked Pam, and I talked to him and I said, Is it possible? Can you do some with the storm angels in that area that are working the snow and the ice and the ice fairies? There's all kinds of fairies, and they are ice fairies too, and snow fairies. He says, I'll talk to them. There's so much I can do because there's certain things that have to happen to a frequency in the area, but I'll see what I can do. He gets seconds, not even a minute goes by. He comes back, he says, Mark, tell her it's all okay. I've set it up. She'll be perfectly fine. No ice will come to her area in Winston-Salem. I called her up and I told her, this is what he said. There'll be no ice storm in Winston-Salem. You'll be safe, no winds. And I don't know what else will happen. So she says, thank you. She calls us after their ice storms, calls us up and says, you won't believe what happened. This is back in the 80s. She says, Mark, the news came on with a thing on their news, whether never has this been seen before. An ice storm, a blizzard hits the area, right? But for some reason, there's a circle around Winston-Salem that was touched by that storm and ice, but a little bit of snow.
Okay, well, Mark, again, this is
She had
incredible.
no proof to show me, but that was what she said.
Hang on, please. Michael, do you have a question? Michael, do you have a question for Mark? No. All right. No? Okay. Well, we have come to the end of an amazing program. Mark and Phyllis, you are beyond anything that we could possibly hope for. You guys are the best. You are family to us. Mark, you are phenomenal. Phyllis, the way you fill things in and bring him to where we need to go. Phyllis, you're in a category by yourself. You really are. We love you guys so much. And please come back and do another part of this, because every time, Mark, you have so many layers of knowledge that you could go to any one of those and spend an hour, let alone.
I used to have witches back in the 80s come to our lectures when we were doing Nature Kingdoms, and they sit in the front row and they're black and they're canes and they're stuff. And I look at them like, hi, how you doing? And they're like, yeah. But then they come up to me later, never have I heard this information. But they were the white witches, they said. But to me, any manipulation of the nature and the beings of nature, you got to watch out for, because they don't forget what's going on. So if a human is into dark magic, let's say dark magic or evil or satanic stuff, these beings, and you're trying to manipulate and control them with an incantation or a word, and they've told me, and Pan's told me what goes on. He says they don't forget. You can manipulate them to a point with these powers that they pull at them. They pull these poor fairies over to, or divas or whatever, to pull into their circle, and they do this manipulation on them. And they actually are overpowered by these negative demonic creatures. So you want to make little innocent, cute fairies and sweet, gentle beings demonic influences and try to change them. They don't forget. And when they get released from that frequency, watch out, because that's what happened to Aleister Crowley. No one talks about. His head went flashing into a wall.
On that note, Mark, you and Phyllis, thank you so much. You have all our loves. You certainly do. Everybody at this wonderful Zoom meeting, thank you for being here. And I'm going to sign off for now.
Okay. So I brought my Christmas pony in here.
Much love to you all. This is Nick Curto for Disclosure Network New York, wishing you all an enlightened journey as you connect the dots to seek truth. Till next time, keep informed, keep safe, and be kind to one another. Goodbye for now. Goodbye for Disclosure Network, New York.
Adonai Vasu Viragas, everybody.
Jim, we're out. We're okay, Jim? We got the recording? We're good. Okay. Love you guys.
Love you.
See you in a couple of weeks.
You know how to do it?
Okay.
Bye-bye.